Chapter 1: The Experiment. Stranger Things is not fiction. The CIA actually tried to create 11. They called it Project MKUltra. Between 1953 and 1973, the agency ran 149 mind control experiments on American citizens without their consent. I'm going to show you 3 truths from this program. 3 truths Netflix could not put on screen because the real version is too dark. In 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered all MKUltra files destroyed. He burned them days before congressional investigations would expose the whole operation. But some documents survived. Financial records, autopsy records, witness testimony that contradicts every official claim. By the end, you will know 3 things. First, how a government scientist was murdered to protect this program. Second, that they did to people they considered disposable. And third, why the techniques from MKUltra are still being used. Right now, here is what the CIA does not want you to understand. They did not fail at mind control. They succeeded at something worse. November 19, 1953, Deep Creek Lake, Maryland. A CIA retreat for government scientists working on biological warfare. Dr. Sidney Gottlieb attends. He is the chief chemist for the CIA Technical Service staff. Gottlieb has a plan. He spikes a bottle of Cointreau liquor with LSD. He doses multiple scientists without their knowledge or consent. One of them is Dr. Frank Olson. Olson works at Fort Detrick developing biological weapons for the army. After the dosing, Olson becomes severely agitated. He tells colleagues he wants to resign. He expresses deep regret about his work. 9 days later, Olson is dead. November 20th, 1953, 2:30 a.m. Hotel Statler, New York City. 10th floor window. Olson falls to his death. When police arrives, they find his CIA escort sitting calmly on the toilet. The government calls it suicide. Case closed. But here is what makes it no sense. In 1994, Olson's son Eric had the body exhumed. A second autopsy. Forensic experts found a large blunt force hematoma on his forehead. The injury happened before the fall, not during, not from impact with the ground. Before. The lead examiner concluded the wound was rankly and starkly suggestive of homicide. Wait, this gets worse. The manual. The same year Olson died, 1953, the CIA published an assassination manual. Declassified decades later. Here is what it says about efficient accidents. I am reading this verbatim. The most efficient accident in simple assassination is a fall of 75 feet or more onto a hard surface. The Hotel Statler is exactly 120 feet tall. The manual recommends one more thing. Stun the target first. A sharp blow to the temple. Olson had blunt force trauma to his forehead. The window in his room was closed, shade drawn. The second autopsy found no cuts or lacerations on his body. If you dive through a closed window, you get cut. Glass cuts you. Olson had no cuts, so which is it? Did he jump through a closed window without breaking the glass, or was he already unconscious when he went through? In 1975, after MKUltra became public, President Gerald Ford apologized to the family. The government paid them $750,000 for an LSD experiment gone wrong, not for murder. The official story remains suicide. But the Olson family never accepted that explanation. Eric Olson has spent decades fighting for the truth. Decades. If Frank Olson was murdered, the motive becomes clear. After being dosed, Olson expressed intentions to resign and go public. He knew about biological weapons program the CIA wanted secret. He became a security risk. So why did Sidney Gottlieb dose him in the first place? To understand that, you need to understand that what MKULTRA actually was. Project MKULTRA officially launched in April 1953. Its stated goal, according to journalist Stephen Kenzer, was terrifying. First, find a way to blast away the existing mind. Second, insert a new mind into that resulting void. The CIA wanted to erase who you are and replace you with someone they control. That was the mission. The disposable. Frank Olson was a scientist. He had a family, a career. He was not supposed to be disposable, but most MKULTRA victims were chosen specifically because nobody would care. The CIA targeted prisoners, mental patients, drug addicts, and sex workers. People the agency classified as more or less disposable. That is a direct quote from National Security Archive analyst Michael Evans. Disposable people. At a federal penitentiary in Lexington, Kentucky, researchers Dr. Harris Isbell ran experiments on addicts. He administered LSD in doses 4 to 5 times higher than normal for months, not days. Months. He wanted to see what the human body could withstand. The subjects were promised reduced sentences if they volunteered. But here is the thing about coercion in prison. When you are behind bars, volunteer does not mean what it should. Then there is a Dr. Ewan Cameron, Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal, Canada. Cameron developed a technique he called depatterning. His goal was to erase person's existing mind completely, see if he could rebuild a new one from scratch. Patients were subjected to high voltage electroshock therapy, then put into drug-induced comas for weeks, sometimes months. While unconscious, they were forced to listen to pre-recorded messages played on a continuous loop, the same phrases over and over, 16 hours a day. One of Cameron's victims was Velma Orlico. She was the wife of Canadian Member of Parliament. She checked into the Institute for Postpartum Depression. She came out and was reportedly never the same again. Her mind had been depatterned. Stranger Things showed 11 escaping Hawkins' lab. She got powers. She became a hero. Velma got electroshock therapy and a destroyed mind. There is no comparison. A 2021 study by the University of Ottawa found something else. Participants in MKULTRA experiments were subject to differential and torturous treatment dependent on race. The CIA specifically targeted black prisoners for the most dangerous experiments at the federal penitentiary in Atlanta and other facilities. The people with the least power got the worst treatment. Want to know how far this went? Operation Midnight Climax. The CIA established safe houses in New York and San Francisco, run by federal narcotics agents George White. They hired prostitutes. The prostitutes lured men to safe houses. Drug suspects, petty criminals, sometimes just ordinary citizens. One inside, the men were secretly dosed with LSD. CIA operatives watched from behind one-way mirrors, observing, taking notes. The victim had no idea they were part of an experiment. They thought they were just visiting a prostitute. Instead, they became test subjects for the United States government. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is documented. This happened. The burn. So how did we learn about any of this? We almost did not. In 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms gave an order: destroy all files related to Project MKUltra immediately. The Sidney Gottlieb helped execute the order. They burned the documents, shredded them, made them disappear. The timing was not random. The Watergate scandal was unraveling CIA illegal activities. Congressional investigations were coming. The Church Committee, the Pike Committee, the Rockefeller Commission, all preparing to expose intelligence agency abuses. Helms was about to be fired. He had days, so he burned the evidence. Not to protect national security, to protect himself. But the destruction was not perfect. Approximately 8,000 pages survived. Financial records, accounting documents, they were misfiled in a different storage facility. Nobody knew they existed until years later. Investigator John Marks found them. He pieced together the history of MKUltra by following the money. Who got paid? When? How much? The financial trail revealed what the burned files had hidden. But here is what we lost. We will never know the full scope of the 149 sub-projects. We will never know the exact numbers of victims, hundreds, thousands. The records are gone. When Sidney Gottlieb testified before the Church Committee in 1975, his memory was suspiciously fuzzy. That is how investigators described it. He could not recall critical details. He evaded direct questions. Gottlieb claimed the LSD dosing of Frank Olson was part of pre-agreement among the scientists. They all supposedly consented, but no evidence of this agreement exists. None. It appears to be a lie designed to absolve him of responsibility. If they had nothing to hide, why destroy the files? If the experiment were justified, why burn the proof? The cover-up reveals guilt more clearly than any document could. And MKUltra was not just domestic experiment. The CIA actively planned to use these techniques abroad. Declassified documents reveal plot against Fidel Castro. The agency prepared exploding seashells for where he scuba dived. They attempted to put botulinum toxin in his wetsuit. They developed poison cigars. They created an aerosolized version of LSD to spray during his radio broadcasts. In one documented experiment, the CIA dosed a group leader with LSD, then placed him back among his followers. He started acting erratically. An unwitted psychiatrist was brought in to evaluate him. The psychiatrist declared the man insane. His credibility was destroyed. The operation was considered a success. This was not research. This was weaponized psychology. The techniques did not stop with MKUltra. The CIA codified the knowledge in training manuals. The most notorious was Covert Counterintelligence Interrogation Manual. It detailed methods for breaking down human resistance, sleep deprivation, sensory overload, psychological manipulation, the same techniques from MKUltra. This manual was used for decades to train Allied forces in Latin America in counterinsurgency operations worldwide. And according to analyst Michael Evans, many of these techniques resurfaced at Abu Ghraib prison, at secret CIA black sites during the War on Terror. The lineage is direct. From MKUltra in the 1950s to enhanced interrogations in the 2000s, the methods evolved, but the core principle remained the same: break the mind. The question: while you have been watching this, something important happened. You learned what your government is capable of, not in theory, in documented fact. Between 1953 and 1973, the CIA conducted non-consensual experiments on American citizens. They targeted the vulnerable. They covered up murderers. They burned the evidence when exposure became inevitable. This is not ancient history. People who ran MKUltra are still alive today. I tried to verify how many total victims there were. The records were destroyed. I searched for documentation of other suspicious deaths beyond Frank Olson. Classification prevents access. I looked for accountability, for prosecutions, for justice. None exist. Sidney Gottlieb died in 1999. He was never charged with crime. Here is the contradiction that keeps me up at night. The Nuremberg Code was established in 1947. It explicitly prohibits experimentation on humans without informed consent. MKUltra began in 1953, 6 years after Nuremberg. The CIA knew the rules. They violated them anyway for 2 decades. So which explanation makes more sense? Option 1. Institutional incompetence on a massive scale. Hundreds of people involved and nobody realized this violated international law. Option 2. They knew exactly what they were doing and they did it anyway because they believed nobody would stop them. I cannot decide which is worse. Analyst Michael Evans warns of something specific: a modern leadership crisis combined with weak congressional oversight. He believes those conditions could allow future abuses under the guise of national security. The question is not could MKUltra happen again. The question is what is happening right now that we will not know about until 2050. What files are being classified today? What experiments are being hidden behind national security walls? My family told me not to make videos about topics like this. They said nobody would care, that I would not reach 100 subscribers talking about government conspiracies. But if you are here right now, they were wrong. If this matters to you, if you believe these questions deserve answers, subscribe. Prove that investigating power is not a waste of time, that accountability still matters to people. Frank Olson died in 1953. His son Eric has fought for truth for over 40 years. He still does not have definitive answers. Velma never recovered her mind. The prisoners at Lexington were never compensated. The exact number of victims will never be known because the people who committed these crimes burned the proof and faced no consequences. So here is what I cannot answer. If they did this when records were physical and could be destroyed, what are they doing now when everything is digital, when surveillance is ubiquitous? When can classification hide anything? The system do not stop when this video ends. They are running right now.